I'm up here.
Oh, you're hiding up there?
I'm hiding.
Dawn! Huh.
How are
I don't wanna
you?
talk to you anyway. What did I have a question for? Oh, yeah. When you're done. What are you doing? Flowers?
Well, I came because
I know there was some sitting in the hallway the other day.
Deirdre told me she was lacking a liner, and I found one in the kitchen,
Oh.
and I came to make sure there was still one here, so I can take
Yeah,
this
oh,
one
so
to
when she
her.
brings the new flowers.
And these were still here. Do you know anybody who would be deserving?
I think give them to Susan, or put them on that side of the church. Because I actually stole one yellow one yesterday. When I saw them there, I'm like, or see if Meals wants to send one home for each. With,
That would be tomorrow.
yeah, they could just, we could like wrap them in little baggies, but if you don't have time,
I don't know,
I think just give them to Susan.
okay.
I'm trying to think of who else might be home. Okay, it's past the time. You know anyone who's shut-in who would like flowers? Okay. Yeah, so, I'm following her, so I can ask her.
Yeah, I gotta put these cats up.
Yes, yes, I will put it in the, like, let's see, you might just, yes, you want to put it, yeah, there's usually, well, there's some over here too, like, but if it's a check, you don't have to. I'll put it in. I have a special folder that I'll put it in, things like that. I want to ask her once before she runs away. She ran away.
All right. So Karen, how excited are you that Michigan is in the Sweet 16?
Yeah, I mean, really, I'm speechless.
You look kind of excited.
They're gonna get beat by Villanova, but
That's all right, that's okay.
Oh, I want to ask you this, Tom. I tried twice to get Sandy Beaumont.
Me too. She's at her daughter's.
Oh,
I can't find her either.
because, I left messages,
Me
one
too.
message, and then the second time I didn't leave a message,
Yeah,
but I
me
didn't know
too.
she was in the hospital.
Oh, yeah, and she had open heart surgery.
She did?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know?
I think a valve down in the city.
Oh,
Yeah.
when is she gonna be in her daughter's? Do you know?
I don't know. I contacted, well, Helen will be here. So I finally contacted Helen. I said, what's going on with Sandy?
Yeah.
So I think I can get her number. Her
Yeah.
daughter, well, I don't know.
Yeah. And Jim, he's been, he hasn't been coming to these,
He's-
because of his treatments?
Yes, he's got treatments every day.
I know, Larry went through that too.
Did he?
Yeah, he had 9 weeks over. Yeah. But, it wasn't, we're retired, it's not such, when you're working, I know women are gonna go every day after work. It's tough, yeah.
Isn't that the thing you want to avoid? The minute you retire, I thought about that too. The minute I retire, I'm going to go see doctors for the rest of my life.
And you've heard people who retire and die.
Yes.
I remember.
IBMers are famous for it.
Really?
Oh, God.
I
It was
remember.
like 16 months.
Really praying, he was got one good year of retirement, that's it,
Yeah,
just one
I
good
know.
year.
Yeah, I definitely know that. So that's why I'm going to retire a little early.
Yeah.
That's what I was.
I retired as soon as I was eligible for a full pension. I was a teacher, so it's a good pension. Yeah, they treat their
Well, good for you.
teachers well.
That's right.
They don't pay them well when they're working.
I was talking to Diana DeGrove about Medicare and all this. She said she's got better health care now and cheaper. It's nothing,
Yeah.
and I won't get that. That's just,
Yeah, that
Yeah.
is, and Social Security,
I know. Yeah.
yeah, Larry, when was the CPA, he said, and his partner was, take the submission, 62,
Right.
don't wait.
Right.
Because it takes 15 years
Before it's
for
worth.
you to
Right.
realize the
Yeah, I'll
benefit.
be long
And
about
you don't
it.
even know if you're going to be alive.
I'll be dead in Trout Street. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Yeah, they say 8% a year, well, so what?
You
Right?
know, you know.
So $100.
It's like, it's, you know,
Right.
no.
For $100?
Get it, yeah.
I'm gonna work a year, so I can have $100 a month.
Yeah, and
Another
it
year.
won't be worth anything. You know,
Right.
inflation. Oh, boy, we just had to fill up with oil today.
Did you? Was it?
$5.07. Yeah. The bill was over $700.
Well, just consider it a donation to Ukraine.
I did already.
I mean, you know, what I mean, we're doing, it's jacked up busy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I see it. Every time I fill up my
I
tank.
have my two from folder, and I'll just put it in that.
Okay, a lot
I
of-
got-
Are you guys sitting further and further back?
No, I'm trying to sit forward.
Oh.
I'm in front of the class this year.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, give me the right one. Because I'll catch you anyways. Well, there was, I gotta look, I can't find one that was made for Girl Scouts. I hope I didn't put it in the church account.
You know, I had to
Because
wait.
they don't look.
My bank account was compromised, and
Oh, yeah.
I had to close out the old account and wait 2 weeks to get a new account and then the checks and,
Yep,
you know.
yep.
But I thought that Hudson Valley was very on top.
Oh, yeah, that's great.
The exact day that there was suspicion,
Yep,
they contacted me.
yep.
And, so,
No, Millbrook did that. My daughter had, when she went to college, she had her debit card with her for her account, at the Millbrook thing.
yeah,
And they called her, and then she called me panicked, like, she said that somebody, was charged a couple things in the Boston area, but they stopped it. And they also told her the ones that went through, because Visa, debit card, they said it's totally protected, those money will all be put back in your account, which was,
yeah, it's wonderful.
that was a wonderful, I didn't realize that, like, I wasn't sure either. And she said, no, they told me right away, it would be, because how could it be that? I said, I'll call them back Monday and ask how. And she said, they promised me, but I can see the charges are there. And I said, no, I can go fix it Monday. It happened over the weekend.
Nothing happened, they just called me and they said, no, it's not, I tried to link an account with several banks.
Yeah.
So no one
Oh, I know.
And then it'll get home again.
So they catch things, they catch things. It's very good.
I think the rest of the week is.
Hi.
Hi.
Good morning.
Oh, yeah. Now, so we talk about this fireworks and low humidity.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the ground is really wet, but the stuff just above it isn't.
And it's very windy.
And yeah, so they don't want you burning leaves or sticks above it. And they always do a fire thing.
Yeah, this time of year.
Because, yeah, if you look at it, the ground is wet, but everything above it is really drying, even though it gets wet, but in a day or two it dries.
Last night, my neighbor, he thought
Like the bonfire. Well, you can. If he has it and he's doing it smart, you're controlling it.
well, I doubt
No.
that, from what I could see.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, you can do it big, if you have a clear area and you have your water right there and you're watching
I
it.
doubt it.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to be the bad guy,
Call on them.
Call.
You could have,
But then they know who
Yeah.
does it, and
Then there's.
yeah, one of my friends knows who does one too, and it's a cop, so it's like, she goes, they'll never get in. Well,
But even if you didn't know there was being, yesterday was windy.
Yeah.
How would you get something going?
right.
And it's-
Yeah, like my husband will burn, but he'll burn, the rain's coming, and he'll do our burn, because we burn cardboard, we just we're not burning it out. And then like, we'll burn our Christmas tree that day, but we'll start the fire like an hour or two before the rain's coming. It's only gonna burn a few things, and then you know.
That's all.
And I keep the area around, we burn it, I keep
Oh.
wait.
It's like there at the farm,
Yeah.
Farmers, I see that some of the willow tree is now all, like black.
Yeah.
There's so much to it, it's not dark.
There are more characters in this church per square inch than
More
characters.
Characters.
characters, yeah.
What makes it fun? What makes
Yes,
it fun to hear?
It is a great.
Oh my
it's a
God,
great-
you guys are so funny.
So in other words, we
No, we're full.
See, and that, like you started it.
I know, I'm just as bad. I know, I'm terrible. Blame my mother. She was like that. Troublemaker.
Really?
My mother was a lot of
That's why
fun.
you were Bob.
Yeah, you guys would have loved my mother. She's a lot of fun. We're gonna wait for Helen.
Yeah, she's in the hall.
Morning, Diane.
Morning, God bless you.
That kind of talk makes me nervous.
Spiritual
Well,
moment.
Huh?
that's Catholic school training.
Can everyone hear me?
Always.
Good morning and God bless.
Good morning, and you stand up, but I'm not standing up. So.
Okay, let's get
yeah,
started. Well, we're gonna wait for Helen.
Me?
No, I did for 1 year, second grade.
And did you have to do it, or was it just?
I don't think
Catholics.
so. I don't know.
They're everywhere.
They're everywhere.
In Lyall.
And you know, they're a real minority in this country.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
God bless
Big
you,
minority.
Father.
For
I mean, not like-
practice.
I had a
For-
teacher.
Yeah, I think they're.
No,
Her name was Mrs. Lyman.
they're way more Protestants.
Oh,
Way
because
more.
it's just in the northeast, I think.
Right.
Where I grew up, though, everywhere I lived.
Where I grew up, there was one.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about
Lines
Michigan,
and, you know, but.
it wasn't as.
Yeah, it's all waspy, you know?
Yeah.
Everybody stood at their
Yeah.
desk.
Yeah, I hardly knew any Catholics. I married one.
When they would come in.
A good idea.
Yeah, I mean, everyone came up.
I married her.
Everybody respected her. and
But a very irreverent. Right?
Well, indeed.
She retired.
This is on, by the way. This is so,
I know.
we're being
Dare, you know,
taped.
even the worst kids did not dare to act out with her. She just, and she wasn't mean. She
I don't
just
like
had
that.
that kind of.
This was me though from college on because
Huh?
I paid attention better.
Yeah.
I just learned. So, you know, college and paying for it. I was sitting up
Oh,
front.
there's no manners in this.
I was so scared. I sat way back. I was scared out of my mind.
Oh, different, yeah. I just, yeah. I was learning stuff I knew I could learn. But I wanted to, yeah. Once I was paying for it myself, I wanted to pay, you know.
And let's do a slam.
Good morning.
Yeah.
Sunshine.
Helen, is it wrong to ask for Sandy's daughter's phone number so I can talk to Sandy?
Everybody being that.
You know, I don't think I have it with me.
I
I don't
did.
have it in my phone.
I can't get in touch with her.
I've carried.
I told her that you had inquired. I texted. She did text
Okay.
me this morning.
I'll text
And she's doing better and she will contact us as she.
Oh, well, that's fine.
But
Yeah, I just
I'll text
don't wanna
Carrie and ask
miss
her.
her.
I'll send you
But
the
you
number to
can
Carrie.
use her cell phone to text.
I don't have it.
Oh, you
Sandy's?
don't have her cell phone?
Not
Hey,
Sandy's.
you don't have Sandy's?
No, I don't think so. I keep calling and I get nothing.
Oh,
Well-
I have Sandy's. I thought you meant Carrie's. 'Cause she's
Well, I did.
Carrie's.
I did because I haven't been able to get a hold of Sandy.
Okay, well,
I
just
called her home or whatever I'm doing.
call her cell phone. You'll
All
get
right,
her.
you can give her
Is
his
it,
number.
is the number in that book?
She can-
Might be in the directory.
Hey, Pat.
Her cell phone number might be in our church directory.
I texted her and told her, she sort of indicated to me that she will let me know
Well,
when
that's,
she's
and
ready
that's
to
fine.
call.
And that's fine.
But I think a text from you would be great.
I just
Text
want,
her cell phone.
I just want to know if she's okay.
She is, if it's too aggressive, she said, it's
text
take a
Carrie.
long time. But it seems like she's getting better. As sick, I think.
Okay, so she's on the meds. Okay. She's on a typical course of recovery. Yeah, okay. All right.
So anyway, but she said.
Yeah, I just wanna hear her voice.
She'll call us.
Okay.
But I did think that you could ask about her.
Appreciate that.
So if
You know, Ann Van
you
Black,
give her number, or you ask if it's okay.
Ann Van Black has also been moved to Lutheran
I'll
care.
just see your schedule.
I haven't seen her yet.
I
I think last week she moved. Well, let's get started, shall we? Maybe not. This is fellowship hour.
Yeah.
And, you know, we're really not worried, we're really not that interested in your personal lives. You know, I won the Pastoral Care Award at Western Seminary. Did I mention that? $1,500.
Well, that's good.
It was not well received by my colleagues. Let's get started. Let's pray. Lord, we pray that your Spirit, which is evident in your word, would also be evident in our lives, and there might be a meeting of knowledge and appreciation and following, so that we might grow deeper and deeper as disciples of yours through Christ our Lord. Amen. What do you think of that? That's good theology, isn't it?
I don't think your mic is good.
You want me to say the prayer again?
I just,
How's that? Better?
maybe,
A little better? Okay.
You could use
Yeah, it's like being back at the Crystal Cathedral. It's terrific.
you could use your little remote one next time. You could use that little, or do you?
Mm-hmm.
That's more.
I don't want to wear the battery down, being Dutch.
Because
Listen, I'll give you some free information today. Is everybody in Mark? Just find your place in Mark, whatever that is, 14, I guess. 14, 40, 43. And I just want you to scan something in your Bibles. Karen, do you have a Bible at home?
yes,
Okay,
I have 2 Bibles at home.
show up. Take a look at every paragraph in your Gospel of Mark. What's the first word in every paragraph?
And, right?
And.
What the first, I just remember that.
But again,
But
Every paragraph? Okay, how many ands do you see? Do you see a lot of the word and? You should, if it's translated right. Well, let me tell you, in the
Or
Greek,
at once.
immediately, Yauthus, and next,
As soon as.
immediately is a favorite word of Mark. Anyway, it's a running gospel. Almost every paragraph in the Greek, it uses the word kai, K-A-I. It's a Greek word for and. And it's kind of a running gospel. It's a gospel that's written, we're pretty sure, in a hurry. And this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. It also gives us an indication that the writer is not that well educated. Otherwise, when you read the Gospel of John, for instance, in Greek, it's smooth as silk. Really smooth. A lot of vocabulary. Pretty sophisticated person. Mark is not. So then we kind of think, well, he's probably a young kid, maybe. In his 20s. First gospel written, as far as canonical gospels. When I say that, do you know what that means? It's in the canon of Scripture, the first one that's received by the church, written by a 22-year-old. How's that suit you? Can you trust a 22-year-old? Do you know any 22-year-olds that you do trust? Yeah, I do too. Yeah, I do too. I do too. Yeah, I do too.
And they're more fearless.
More
They're
fearless.
not gonna couch their words. They're not, they're gonna punch it out.
Right.
Yeah.
They're gonna tell you.
They're going to go for it.
They're gonna tell you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you too, what do you think about Jesus being 33 years old when he died? 33. What were you doing when you were 33?
Start a family.
33.
Yeah.
Started when he was 30, ish. Started off when he was 30. Who is this? It really is something, isn't it? I think sometimes it's good to kind of step back. Say a 33-year-old Jewish man died in Palestine. Okay. Impressive. I also wanted to take a little step back and talk about the Gospel of Mark as a whole. It is known as a gospel of conflict right from the get-go, and I think it's even chapter 2, second chapter of Mark. Already the Pharisees are going after him. They have a bead on him. This is not someone who we want to have around for long. And a lot of commentators, biblical scholars will say, well, that's one of the reasons he went up north to Galilee. He went up there to kind of get out of the heat. Otherwise, he would have been snuffed out at any moment. He's still in deep trouble up there. They follow him up there, and they've got the Roman government is still up there, and there's certainly synagogues up north and that sort of thing. So he's still being trailed up there, but they're starting to hunt him down in the second chapter of Mark. I wonder how Zelensky's feeling about being hunted down. That guy's being hunted, right? I think four attempts so far. 4. 4 attempts in what, 2 months? A little over 2 months? Or not even 2 months. Hunted. You ever been hunted? There was a girl in high school that hunted me down. But it felt different than, I don't know. So, and then one more thing about this. This whole week of Jesus's trial and death is in the background. It's the backdrop of it is Passover, right? That's important to. You got to keep all these balls up in the air. You know, when I first got into seminary, before I got into seminary, they gave all of us a whole battery of tests. The Minnesota Multiphasic Personality Inventory, the MMPI, which that'll scare you, right? That did not turn out all that well, but there was another one. You know, how many balls can you keep in the air mentally? And I didn't really know exactly why they had that, but I know now, looking back. You know, you have to be able to be good at this. You know, reasonably good at it. You have to be able to keep a lot of things in your head, and this is one of them. That the passion narratives in all 4 Gospels are set in the overall story of the Passover, right? So you've got the Passover, Jewish Passover, going on over here, and you've got it actually being played out under here. What do you make of that?
God's timing.
Huh?
God's timing.
God's timing? Yeah, okay, all right. You want to say more?
Well, just that maybe people are listening, and they're quieter during Passover, but just also so that we would see the lamb and the lamb's blood.
The lamb and the lamb.
The lamb sacrificed to save the Jewish people, the lamb sacrificed to save everyone.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they might see the connection.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that's important. Yeah, that's good. Good point. Anybody else? You've got overarching is the Passover, a Jewish Passover. Here you've got Jesus acting it out, being acted out. What do you make of that? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I kind of feel like, the Passover was so significant, but it really coinciding with the Passion of Christ kind of shows the evolution and summation of one from the beginning of the New Testament, because, as you said, which is beautiful, the lamb is now superseded by the true lamb, and when the sacrifice is done, then the new church begins. I think that that's really significant.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. Yeah. Thank you, Pat. Anyone else? Yeah. Go ahead.
And then the releasing of the death sentence, because the firstborns all died unless they had that blood on their lintel.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're talking about if you believe in the Lamb,
Mm-hmm.
the death sentence is away for you too.
Mm-hmm.
Here on earth you're going to die, but
Mm-hmm.
so there's like a release
Yeah. Yeah.
in the end
So-
of the story.
Okay. So during Passover, you've got the sacrifice of the unspotted, perfect lamb, right? The blood is put over the lintel. We got great lintels over here. The angel of death passes over. Pass over. Right? Sabe? And this is now going to get played out here in real terms with Jesus. Now, here's something to consider too, is that when all this starts with Abraham and Sarah, you're throwing money around, Karen.
Excuse me?
You're throwing money around.
I am.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my notes.
Oh, never mind. Okay. Doggone it, we have the treasurer right here of our church. I'm surprised you didn't jump on it, Kristen.
Die.
Anyway, you've got a singular story starting from Abraham and Sarah, right, all the way through the Old Testament. Can you see it? Can you see the thread? Right? And when Jesus comes, Jesus is a little bit like a prism. So you've got this light, this story, this light coming through the centuries, and it hits this prism, this person that acts like a prism, and what is very restricted. The story is restricted to a family, a tribe, a nation, right? You can see it's expanding, and then it hits Jesus, and it becomes universalistic.
I like that because if light hits a prism, it's a rainbow. So I think of all people, you know.
It's a rainbow. So if you see a rainbow flag
Yeah.
outside of Lyall Church, there's a lot to say about that, right? A lot to say about a rainbow flag, right? Do you see that conceptually, how that's working? And this is conscious in the minds of the New Testament writers. It'll especially be with St. Paul, even though he has, St. Paul really sees this as one of the values of St. Paul. He can interpret this whole thing and this thing. Now he'll choke on it a little bit. There's no Jew, there's no Greek, right? There's no male, there's no female, and so on. This is one of St. Paul's great writings. I forget where that is. I want to say Romans, but maybe not. But anyway, Paul recognizes this action. He is going to pull back on it because of political issues. The church says, yeah, no male, no female, or we're going to have female ministers then. Great, terrific. And things got a little wild, so he pulls that back. No woman teaches in our churches. It was he was afraid for the churches, the backlash. So that's my opinion. Not only mine, but do you see what I mean? I guess that's a good question. How far does this go? Who does it include? Everyone.
And I keep thinking, you're saying it's the light of the world. I just love the image you're
Yeah.
creating.
Well, it's biblical images.
But it's, light is so important, and you're diffracting it. So like when you talk about if you change your path a little, how years down the road, so it's totally changing.
Significant,
the path.
yeah.
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 And crystals are perfect.
So all right, so you have that idea from is this okay to talk about this? This is sort of the theology section,
And science.
I guess. And this is what I have to imagine living with myself. So you've got this refraction that includes everyone, and that's St. Paul, and then a person by the name of Karl Barth. Do you know who that? Does that name ring a bell? I studied with John Hesslink, who was the president of my seminary at the time, who studied with Karl Barth, who is seen by most people as the most significant theologian since Augustine. He was Swiss, lived and wrote from like 1920 to middle of 60. In that range, I've got tons and tons and tons of books of Karl Barth. Karl Barth would say, okay, he would play with this idea of expansion of the story. And he would say, well, God's grace is all-powerful, so it's going to include everyone, whether they know it or not. In other words, God is in your life whether you acknowledge it or not. Is that true? Or do you other theologians would say, well, that's great, except shouldn't you consciously become a Christian? That's the argument. What's the point? If everybody's he's called a nascent universalist, Karl Barth, and they would say, well, what good is being a Christian then if God is going to love you no matter what? What good is it? What good is it?
To me, it makes my life better now.
Right, and that's what Karl Barth would say.
Because I have friends and support.
That's right. That's right. It matters now. Your life will grow.
It's better.
Yeah, you'll have a fuller, better life being in relationship with God and relationship with yourself and relationship with other people. It'll deepen your life at every level. That's what Karl Barth would say. That's why we become Christians. It's not primarily because you want to go to heaven, because he would say that's a lock. You're in, unless you don't want to go. That's a lock. Everybody's going to go. You see what I mean?
And I make the choice. I think that's pivotal.
Isn't that huge?
When I make the conscious choice
Yeah.
to do something,
Yeah.
then I'm going to open myself up for the better life, the deeper meaning.
Yep.
And rather than being impugned with Christ's whatever or
Right.
God's whatever, I might accept some, I might not accept some, but when I make the choice, I'm committed
Right.
and I'm open. I think that's the whole pivot of the thing. As we said before, we can't look at nature and not know that God exists. So we all know that God exists anyway. So
Right.
we all are aware of God, and no glory to us individually, but that is the moment of truth for all of us when we make the choice. I want it. I accept it. I'm keeping it no
Right.
matter what. And no matter what
Yeah.
can be really hard, but I think there are all those debatable, what about this and what about that? Listen, I chose this. I chose it 40-some years ago, and it has been sometimes hell. And most times, it has been wonderful and has carried me through my darkest hour to my brightest hour. And I don't know, we're like the song, I'm not turning back now.
Well, we say to people, don't you want to start that journey now? I've actually met people who have said, no, I got a couple things I want to do over here first. Okay. Well, let's take a look at this thing then. We'll take a look at, we'll start with Mark 14:43. And I would encourage you, to when you're home and you want to take a look at these passages in Mark, to dig around to Matthew. You'll see it right away. Matthew, it's not identical, but it's really close. If you look at Luke, he's got sections that are embellished, and he also slides other things in. And I think it's a really good question to say, why are you doing that? What benefit is there to adding a little slice here? And then with John, you'll see John is his Jesus just knows what's going on. It's like a play that he knows, and he's just kind of going through the motions almost. Jesus is, I know it's going to be like this. He's back talking with Pilate and back talking. He is a Jesus that is completely unafraid of what's going on because he knows what's going to happen. John's Jesus. So and the disciples are pretty smart. in John's Jesus, whereas in Mark's gospel, the disciples are really out to lunch, really not knowing what's going on. I mean, it's pretty profound. Almost at every, I'm talking about the entire gospel of Mark. The disciples are just not getting it, which for me is a proof of the resurrection. These guys don't get it. They're fearful. They're stuck in the upper room. They're terrified. These are all natural reactions. I certainly relate to them. But something triggers these people where they go from mice to men kind of thing. World beaters. They're absolutely unafraid. What kind of event would make that switch, that profound switch from being this all the way through the Gospels to being, you can see, for instance, like the Ukrainians, right? Grandmothers taking care of their grandkids, and now they're pushing back on a tank. What does it take? What does it take to move a person from that to that? And for me, that's one of the proofs of the resurrection, is the reaction of the disciples. Does that make sense? Jesus doesn't say next to anything about the resurrection. We see moments where Jesus is interacting, the resurrected Jesus is interacting with the disciples, but he's not. You see what I mean? It's the disciples themselves that are transformed into these incredible human beings, and they are as normal as rain over here for 15 chapters. Doesn't that mean something to you? I've said that to people that are non-Christians over and over and over. That's why I believe in the resurrection of Jesus. It's the disciples. It's such a profound change. Anyway, you want to play with this a little bit? We're looking at, what are we? 1443. This is. Would someone read 43 through 52? That chunk.
I will. Nobody else will.
Fire away.
Just as he was speaking, Judas, one of the 12, appeared. With him was a crowd with swords and clubs, sent from the chief priests and the teachers of the law and the elders. Now the betrayer had arranged a signal with them. The one I kiss is the man. Arrest him and lead him away under guard. Going at once to Jesus, Judas said, "Rabbi," and kissed him. The men seized Jesus and arrested him. Then one of those standing near drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest, cutting off his ear. "Am I leading a rebellion," said Jesus, "that you have come out with swords and clubs to capture me? Every day I was with you, teaching in the temple courts, and you did not arrest me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled." Then everyone deserted him and fled. There's your non-heroes. As a young man wearing nothing but a linen garment was following Jesus. When they seized him, he fled naked, leaving his garment behind.
Thank you. The Bible's so strange, isn't it? A lot of people are saying this is a little tradition, a little homage to Mark, that he was there as a kid. That's tradition. It's the only time you're going to see it in the Gospels. Okay? All right, talk to me. Let's talk to each other about Judas. What is going on with Judas? We talked before about, there's a lot of betrayal in the Gospel of Mark, a lot of it. Let's talk about this one, this person. What is on his mind and heart? Money, maybe? Yeah, okay.
And maybe protecting his own life.
Say more about that.
Well, he's being the traitor to the group because he sees the heat coming up, and now they know he was with them.
Uh-huh.
So now he's trying to keep himself safe. I'll turn them in, but I'll be able to live.
Save his own skin.
Save his own skin.
Okay. What else?
But money.
Disappointment.
Yeah, say more about that, Pat.
I keep going back to their preconceived notion of the Messiah was that he was coming in to lead the charge, to overthrow all of the things that they didn't like. And now these guys had stuck with him. And I agree, I don't think they got what was going on. But something, I feel like, I did some research into the history of what was going on in the area during the Passion, and I think that they still clung to, up until the very last week, that somehow, some way, there was going to be this massive insurrection and overthrow. And I'm thinking, since he's the one that betrayed, then maybe he was the one, or he was really upended by the fact that it didn't happen. And you know, once you start to get disappointed, you start to find fault, and you start to find reasons why it isn't what you thought it was. And I did read in one of the researches that Judas, I believe, was holding the money for the group.
He was the treasurer.
Yeah.
The love treasure. Well loved.
And I think that once your heart faces away from the things of God, you'll leave yourself open.
Yeah.
And he was really open.
Yeah.
He was really open if at that point, and I think it was just a matter of a cakewalk for the devil to get in.
Yeah. Yeah. You know these times when Jesus would heal somebody, and it's sometimes Judas says, what a waste, what are you doing? What are you doing this for? Don't we have better things to do than help people? Right? It's just it's slipped into the Gospels here and there. What are we doing? We're about revolution. We're not about healing a sick daughter. Right? You can see he's already, this is not what I signed up for. His full, how we know him, his other name is Judas Iscariot. An Iscariot is a really long knife. And during the time of Jesus, the Iscariot was a group. They would go into the marketplace, busy marketplace, and they would take it to the Romans, one at a time, right? And they were all about revolution, and did not mess around. And a lot of scholars think that this guy, Judas Iscariot, was definitely part of that group, saw this as, the revolution that's going to kick these Romans out. They've been around for like 100 years, I want to say, ish. So they've been occupied. The Jews have been occupied for 100 years, and they have had it. They're thinking about the good old days, make Jerusalem great again. Right? That's such an impulse. It's been an impulse throughout history. This is what we've gone through. It's nothing new. Make Jerusalem great again. So they're talking about King David, and let's use the high water mark, as far as he's like a Zelensky, a warrior king, close to God, wrote most of the Psalms. All that sort of thing, beat Goliath, and he's a giant killer. Our Messiah, who God's going to bring us, he's going to be just like David, and he is going to, can you say, kick poo-tang in a sanctuary? I haven't said that since I was a teenager. I'm not even sure what it means, but anyway, you get the idea. He is going to throw these Gentile dogs out. And we are going to reclaim our land. We're going to reclaim the temple, temple worship. Can you imagine under occupation what that was like? You can't speak out. The Pharisees, Sadducees, scribes, They can't speak out. They have to placate the Romans. The whole thing stinks. And Judas and his friends and others are saying, this guy is going to be our guy. So can you imagine how thrilled they are on Palm Sunday? He comes riding on an ass. I mean, are you kidding me? That did it. That did it. For a lot of followers of Jesus, that did it. We're not doing that. That's a typical signal of peace. A king riding on a donkey is not what we're looking for here. So you give up. You give up. Yep.
And maybe you don't even give up. You get proactive. I'm going to get rid of him.
Right.
Because I don't want people following me.
This is, and he's mad. Can you imagine? He's mad. He's angry. He's crestfallen. This guy who I followed for the last 3 years, just loser, absolute loser.
I keep thinking about the, I forget what they were called, something boys, the ones that attacked on January 6th.
Proud Boys. The Proud Boys.
Like,
Yeah.
that's what I keep thinking in my head.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
he's like,
Yeah. Interesting.
wants to be part of the Proud Boys, like, we've had enough.
Yeah.
Let's just go in and
Yeah.
get it by
We
force.
don't have a plan. We don't really have a plan. We're just going to go in and just muck it up, right? Chaos. Bring chaos. Yeah. Yeah. Even though their issues might be important, right? I don't think anybody would disagree with Judas in thinking that, occupation from the Romans was a good thing. You're not going, right? You're not going to argue with that. But Jesus is after bigger fish than that because he wants to go like this.
Yeah.
Universal. God is at the place where he's using the Messiah, not for a private or for a limited issue, as important as that is. God is after much bigger fish when it comes to the Messiah. We're going after the whole thing. We're going to solve this thing.
And, I can see that you would be caught up in that too, because that's how God, through the Jewish history, that is how they were brought back in. God does something and it's a war, or it's this or that, or something gives up, or, he had to kill all those boys, and right?
Yep.
Like each time there's been a sort of an act of violence or something.
Yeah, yeah, many.
To allow the Jews to be free again.
Right, to be free again. And then after a while, and I think all of us do this, right? You start to say, well, God is doing this for my benefit. Yes, for your benefit. But this is about people that don't know. This event is about people that don't know, that need to know. Churches go through this. Families go through this. You get insular, right? People do this. It'll be in your, I just wrote a prayer of confession before I came in, all about that. We see too much and we close down, right? I would imagine all of us have had moments like that in our lives where you just shut down because you don't want to interact with this out there, however far you want to go, out. You want to lock it down. And that was the impulse, definitely, of the Jewish people from time to time, but here too. The Messiah is about us. And Jesus is saying, his life and death is saying, no, it's not.
It's about others.
It's about them. The original covenant, and there are many, like layers of an onion, but the original covenant between God and Abraham is that I will bless you, right? You will become a blessing. And through you, all the nations of the earth will bless themselves. That is way back in Genesis 12, way back. That's how this all started. And you forget. And we still live with that. Christians still live with that covenant. God has blessed us. We become a blessing. And through us, we bless the world around us, right?
So like
Got that?
We have the gift of it, but like we were saying, what we do with it, God's work would be, get out there and bless others.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Not keep it to ourselves.
You can't keep it to yourself. Yeah, you can't keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
After all these years, I've met Christians who are every Sunday Christians, believe on the Lord Jesus Christ and you shall be saved kind of Christians. And I've asked them point blank, have you ever led a person to Christ? No, I would never do that. Well, I don't know.
Because most of the time you're up against arguments, and it's like a brick wall. You're beating yourself against a brick wall.
Sure.
You can't convince them.
Right.
But they just don't want to accept it.
Sure.
And that's been my personal
Sure.
experience.
And then I wonder, maybe it's not about arguments. Maybe there's a different way to do this. How often does Jesus get into an argument? He does. He does get in some arguments, but what are some of the other ways that he approaches people? Hi. You can't take those out of the sanctuary? I don't know. Forgive me. I just like saying it. Okay. It's something to consider. Is the validity of our faith to the level of our willingness to interact with people? Maybe not directly about our faith, but be interested in their lives. That's what Jesus was. He was interested in their lives, and it comes up.
You listen.
It comes up. Sure.
I don't think, and I don't believe that, I wrestled with this for a long time in my Christianity, because I agree with you. You do meet brick walls, and that is daunting. But it's not about, I think, hatch marks that I got somebody to say.
Right, of course.
I
Yeah.
accept Jesus.
Sure.
My husband died 7 months ago, and I have heard from people throughout our whole lives who found out that he had passed and were calling to comfort, whatever. And a lot of them said, you guys did, and that really moved me toward God.
Right.
So I think that it's a great privilege to be able to kneel with someone and have them repeat the words of salvation. But that's not always the case.
No.
Sometimes it's just a kindness, a kind word, being
Yeah.
a shoulder to cry
Yeah.
on, giving the encouragement, being the Christian that Christ expects us to be, I think, is part of the plan for each of us to be led to Christ. I mean, if somebody appeared to me, and somebody came to me, and believe me, they tried to get me saved. I was like, "Meh, I'm not your religion. I don't want to hear what you
Right.
have to say,
Yeah.
but chipping away. First this one whom I rejected, then that one who I was like, all right, that sounds plausible. I think that that's part of God's plan for each one of us, and I think that that's what we'll be accounting for. Did I use my resources for him? When I was called upon to use my resources, and I think I know times where God was like, I think you should speak to them.
Yeah.
And there were times when I said, not me. No, not now. No, I'm not the one that can do it. And I think of those things, and I feel like, wow, as I grew in Christ and saw how you can touch another soul, what a missed opportunity means now. It could have been that opportunity that helped them to see, oh man, she's the worst example of Christian I know, but look what she's doing. So I do think we have to be always ready, and I think that that's a broad phrase,
Sure.
leading somebody to Christ, because I know that I didn't get led to Christ on the first try. I'm sure people, we all know people that we've tried to share the gospel with, and they were like, nah, I don't think so.
Well, I've had a strange experience too, and this is long before I was a minister, so I can't take credit for that. But just compassion. I've had classmates. I had this happened to me when I went back to Michigan for my 40th class reunion. Some people came up and they said, "I'm a Christian because of you." And I wouldn't. How did that work? Right? Why? I said, why? And it wasn't because it just.
You didn't preach to them.
Right? I mean, there's another guy, Glenn Carlson. We were really good friends from the time we were little. We'd hitchhike for a day. We'd just go as far as we could go. We did not tell our parents. We're 14. What are you going to do? Let's hitchhike to Detroit. Let's see how far we can go. And then we'd go halfway with our little sandwiches, and then we'd turn around and go home. Right? How was your day, honey? Great. Go Tigers. And we would spend the day just talking, because you don't get picked up, that much. I mean, truckers would pick us up and stuff. But, yeah, Glenn said to me, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago, he said, "Yeah, I'm a Christian now because of you." Like, what did I do? What did I do?
When you're saying it's not that talking doesn't do it, it's
Yeah.
the walking.
Yeah, it's the walking, it's the compassion.
Not preaching, it's
Yeah.
just being,
Yeah.
being a light, being a kindness,
My husband's memorial service, my son, and I have 4 kids, and I'm going to tell you that I thought they would all be axe murderers, and I wore out my knees, praying for them. But at my husband's memorial service, my son got up and he said, "I watched the power of God's transforming grace when I saw my parents bent in prayer, and that the example of trust in God is unshakable for me." Now, I had never heard that from any of my children, and that is like, wow, it's not something I consciously did.
Sure.
Well, I guess, I consciously did it, but not with the idea of, I'm going to teach these kids to be in the family of God. Because in my heart, I was like, okay, you're never going to be in your family. And it is, when that comes back to you, and you don't even think that you did something consciously to provoke it, it is such a blessing. And I feel like, that's confirmation that we do have, and it's the way we can repay our thanks for the gift of salvation.
Absolutely.
I can't win 100 souls because I'm in the position to do that. And I think a mistaken thing is a lot of people think, Pastor, you're the person to save the souls, not
Right, because I'm the head missionary here.
Don't get me wrong.
Right.
There are things that you can do in somebody's path to salvation that quite possibly none of us can do. But we're your support, and I think that's how the church should be. You're the guy who lays it out. You're the guy who says, I know because I know, and God says. We're the people that say, yeah, what he says is right because we're living it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I've got some training, but, I feel like I'll just say, there have been many times where a friend, would say, why do you do what you do? Why do you think that? And that, it's just, we're friends, and so there's the question, why do you,
Who cares?
What's your, who cares? What's the hope that you have in you? And, and my friends profoundly know that I'm imperfect, profoundly, and working on getting even more profoundly imperfect, it seems. But that doesn't seem to matter. It matters. Authenticity, I think, matters, and right. And can you have a real heart-to-heart talk? I just want to take. We got 10 minutes, but I've been watching TikTok videos, and you know what I'm talking about. I'm kind of new to all this, but one of them that I've seen a couple times now, because they kind of get shared again or whatever, has to do with. There was a question that was asked just to men. is there anyone in your life that you would call if you were in trouble? And it brings me to tears. What? They're going, what? No. I'm not going to talk to anyone. There's no one in my life that I could talk to. There's not a single person I would talk to if I was in trouble. I mean, one after the next, after the next, after the next. And then there's another one that then shows the percentage of men in this country who commit suicide and how many a year. You know, they're just, I'm bringing this up because I think so many people are hurting and they don't have a person in their life, anyone that they can talk to. And it just breaks my heart, you know, just watching that stuff. And you think, would it be an act of the kingdom of God coming into their lives in the form of compassion and grace? So they're already experiencing God's salvation. In other words, they don't even know it. We're not naming it. But that is, in fact, what's going on. When I was at the hospital, working at the hospital, Pine Rest Christian Hospital, we were forbidden to talk about our faith. Yeah, because we had federal funds that came in. So you may not do that. Or proselytize may not do that. You'll get fired if you do. So, okay, I guess we won't do that. Invariably, families and patients would say, why do you do what you do? Then you could say it. Then you could say it. If they're asking you, why do you do what you do? Because almost all of us were Christians on staff. It was 1,000 employees. So do it through.
That's also true in the public school system. You can't take
Right.
it out.
And I'm thrilled for that. I think that's the way to go. I don't want my gym teacher leading a prayer for my daughters. I don't need that. I would rather have it experienced. Then you can talk about it. Yeah, I'm against Christianity. You can study religion in a public school, that's fine. But not faith. You don't teach faith in a public school. I do not believe that. It'll kill it. It'll kill it. It'll kill the faith if you do that.
Because you feel that they don't have they haven't been trained to do that?
It's none of their business. It's none of their business. It's not the business of a public school in my mind. It's none of your business.
And if the kids ask questions, again.
Different story.
The teachers can lead them in a discussion.
Absolutely.
I know Lynn's had wonderful experiences with.
Of course.
The kid would ask, and she knew she had and she'd get the kids just talking.
To talk about it.
Because they're third grade, so she could
Right.
she could let the discussion flow.
I taught sociology of religion at SUNY New Paltz,
Each other.
and my students, there were 30 of them, they knew I was a minister. They peppered me with questions.
Yeah.
No problem. Great. That's no problem. But I'm not going to teach you in a public school. I am vehemently against that. Anyway, well, let's talk. We talked a little bit about Judas. Let's talk about the religious leaders. What's going on with them? What are they doing? Is Jesus going to get justice?
No.
He's not going to get justice. They want to pin. They don't want to bring justice. They want to bring law. And those are they're related. Justice and law are related, but they're not the same. Harvard Law School is big on this point, by the way. Big difference between justice and law. You want to get them close together, but they aren't always. The religious leaders are bringing law. Why are they doing this?
Maybe similar to what she said is that this is not what they wanted. They wanted a King David type person too, or because it wasn't that, and they could see they didn't want to anger the Romans, right? Because he was, or something. I don't know.
What's going to happen if the religious leaders say, "This is our guy. This is the Messiah. Let's follow him"? What's going to happen in Jerusalem? They're all going to get killed. Because there's only one king. That's Caesar. no competitors. Just look at Putin and his, right, look at his, it's so easy, right? And right now it's really easy to find illustrations. Putin's inner circle is getting smaller and smaller. I just saw a report that he's got 2 people he's talking to. 2.
Oh, you mean even his own,
Yeah.
his normal?
Yeah. Yeah. He doesn't trust. Doesn't trust.
Yeah, doesn't
Did you see him with that table? A gigantic table? He's got, what is it, 18 feet? Something like that? It's a big table. He's here, and his couple guys are down there. And, sorry?
Do you think that's a real picture, or is that?
I do think it's a real picture. Yeah.
The angle?
No, I don't. I think it's a real picture, and I think that is the reality. I mean, that's been corroborated as far as who he's talking to. He doesn't have anybody else in his life he can talk to, and this is the fear of the religious leaders.
There is what again?
This can't happen. We cannot embrace Jesus as the Messiah or anyone as a Messiah. There were a lot of Messiahs during Jesus' day, you know. Did you know that? People saying, I'm the Messiah, and they're preaching. It's like going to the bus station in Manhattan, that kind of thing. A lot, right? There's stuff like that's going on. So there was a very heightened sense of messianic fervor in Jerusalem at this time. Yeah. And there were different kinds, you know, political and so on. But the religious leaders, no way is this going to... Can we help? Oh, I'm sorry. You know, forgive me. We're about done. Okay. Yeah, just give us a minute. I'm sorry. I forgot about that. Forgive me.
Next time, we can turn that speaker.
I'm going to turn this off. How about that? Is that better?
Yeah. Well,
There's-
no, it's
all
gonna
right,
pick up,
there's the-
it's gonna pick
Is
up.
that better?
from
Okay,
this.
forgive me. So what do you think about that as far as the religious leaders? They're going to shut this thing down.
Well, they had the power. They didn't want Christ taking over. They did not view him as the Messiah.
He can't be the Messiah. He can't be our Messiah. Can't do it.
So then they feel justified by their laws.
That's right. We're going to protect the people as much as we can under this.
When you say they say he can't be our Messiah, why? Are they also looking for the superhero, or?
We're all going to die. We're all going to die. We receive this guy. They're going to kill every single one of us. Then what do we have? What do we have then? Which leads to, we'll stop with this. The backdrop of this, one of the backdrops of this story, this passion narrative, has to do with power and authority and force. Jesus gets his head around this, and by extension, we ask, does God get God's head around this? How are we going to pay for this thing? How are we going to pay for the salvation of the world? Who's going to pay for this thing? And the church, the early church, asks this question too, as they are being persecuted and they're dying by the dozens, cheaper by the dozen. All over, it will be after Pentecost, all around the Mediterranean Horn, they're getting slammed. How are we going to pay for this? This good news, and who's going to pay for it? Are the weak and children, or grandparents? Who's going to pay for it? Putin has answered that question, right? He's answered the question. In total contrast, this story is saying, we'll take it on ourselves. We'll pay for it.
Sacrifice versus...
Yeah. What is real leadership? None of the other gods are going to do this, by the way. All the other gods are going to say, you guys pay for it. We're not paying for it. You pay for it. who pays for it? And that is the grace, that is the gift of Christ, and I would say by extension the whole Godhead, if you want to talk about the Trinity, they're all in on it. Heaven, everybody in heaven is in on it. That's the big question. Who's going to pay for this? We'll do it. We'll pay for it. That's one of the reasons why we wear crosses. And then the resurrection substantiates the cost. It's worth it. In other words, life is going to win. God's life is going to win. You're going to win. Even after we pay for it. It's beautiful stuff, right? Is that close to where we are? Okay. I did pretty well to get through my little list.
I'll try to figure out next week, come early and see if I can fill next week off.
Okay, that's great.
You bet, I
Okay.
think.
All right, thank you for coming. So we're gonna go from the religious trial to the Roman trial. There are two trials. Okay. Thanks for coming. Good. This is my swan song.
No.
Guys,
We're
they're not
gonna-
loud.
we're
I'm
gonna-
not speaking out loud.
We're just gonna, hang on to you.
No, you're gonna.
Never let me
No, there's so
go.
many good people.
You'll never get rid of
That's
us.
intense.
What?
Just this past hour, you.
What's the matter?
So, did you get it?
Yeah, he's,
Wow.
Yeah.
Sure.
I
Never
heard a lot of
he
thought
those.
doesn't
that
even know
I love
what
the
he's
business.
doing.
Yeah. By the way, nothing I say is original to me. Unless you disagree with it.
Yeah, but we can't read all those books and take all those
Yeah,
classes.
yeah,
I mean,
I could see
get a
that.
synopsis
Yeah.
and
And
just
the
a
way you
view.
see it in a different light, yeah.
Yeah, and, I mean, I just think it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
I really do. You're amazing.
I'm amazing.
You did
I wish my parents were alive, seriously. They just didn't think I'd turn out much at all. I mean, poor things.
They were wrong. Parents are wrong.
I'm kidding, my parents love me, they just couldn't understand it.
Okay.
See, it's not a way. She said, "Oh, you need
Something, but it's just past something.
I'm going to do
It was great because, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.